many Bach keyboard pieces have very dense melodic material. Perhaps maybe we could just quick analysis of maybe the first movement of the French suite. Wilcia is mentioning that he's convinced that he might have understood music precisely in the hexachordal tradition. Although his music is extremely complex, the mi fa concept opens up his music for better understanding. And his quote, mi fa et fa mi est toda musica. I think it would be helpful for people to see these masters show the way they would understand a Bach keyboard piece. Professor Baragwanath, should we talk about this Bach piece here? Let me pull up the thing that you sent me.
Yeah, here's one we prepared earlier. Yeah, I saw this question a little while before we were talking, and so I very quickly pieced this together. And here we have BWV 815, the French suite, the Allemande in E-flat. And I have analysed it for you. And it's really obvious what Bach was doing here. It's extremely obvious. I don't have a keyboard in front of me, otherwise I would play it for you. But this is the pattern. You can see at the beginning we have Bob Jernigan's quiescenza schema. And in solfeggio terms, we have sol, fa, mi, sol, fa, or sol, fa, mi, fa. That's the essence of the quiescenza. Over a pedal note is a very typical example here. And you can see we've got that kind of rising thirds pattern. We've got an inganno in the first bar. The sol is actually B flat rather than what you would expect. And you can see we've got the rising through the hexachord and then descending through the hexachord. Sol, fa, mi, re, do. Very simple pattern. And if you look at the bass, you can see it's just an octave scale. Just an octave scale, rising from E flat to E flat. And then we have a staggered ascent. So I'll sing it for you. Sol, fa, mi, sol, fa, la, sol, fa. And then you'd expect it to go back to la there to finish the hexachord, but instead it goes up to sol, fa, mi, re, do, cadence. Fa, la, sol, fa, mi, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. You can see the little staggered ascent from fa to sol. It goes up. It's a really simple pattern. And if you, I don't know if you can see it there because we can't see the bottom of the picture.
Oh, up here. Let's
the
see.
Bottom's missing of the picture. Go back a bit. Yeah. Look, you can see there a nice little bass pattern that Bach's used. Mi, fa, mi, fa, mi, fa. All the way down. So it teaches you all sorts of improvisation skills. Yeah. And the thing is, if you gave a partimentist this rising octave scale, even with that rhythm, they probably wouldn't do what Bach has done here. So this is actually a very advanced way of realizing an ascending scale.
Right.
Like I say, I wish I could play it for you. I don't have a keyboard.
Did Bach know this hexachordal system?
For sure, absolutely, for sure. Yes, we know contemporaries of his at the time who wrote about it and talked about it, and it was taught. It was the main system that was taught. We know the textbooks that were used during Bach's lifetime in that part of Germany, and yes, that's exactly what they used. And I think it explains a lot. And the thing is, so when I showed that example, you can see really quite simple scale patterns and scales, leaps, cadences. That's the three things you find. And the art of it is how it's spoken. Now, I use that analogy. So I like Bob, I think that music was an art of rhetoric. It's a way of speaking. So if I was a beginner, I would sing it exactly as it's written here. If I was a sort of 6-year-old, learning music, I would sing sol, fa, mi, yep, and I would learn the notes. But if I'm a master, if I start to go more advanced, I wouldn't sing them in this boring way. I would sing or play them in a different way. And Bach in this Allemande, of course, has all sorts of semiquaver figurations going on. But once you know this pattern, you can easily perceive it. Anyone, I'm sure, can hear this pattern when you hear the music. But Bach was a master. And so when he speaks these syllables, he speaks them in a wonderful stylistic way. He puts suspensions in. He messes around with the rhythm. He puts all sorts of lovely figurations and beautiful melodic turns. But the essence is the same. So a 7-year-old would be playing this, yes? The same patterns, but they can't play them like Bach played them. So it's exactly what Bob said. You start with simple things and then you vary them and you speak them over and over in different ways and you learn different styles. So this pattern could be in a 3/4 minuet style. It could be in an aria style. It could be in an adagio. It could be an allegro. It's the same pattern, and you learn all the different ways you can say this. So partimentists love to improvise preludes like Bach, and it's wonderful. I would say that learning the solfeggio gives you an extra dimension. You know, it's a dimension that enhances the ability to perform bass lines like this.
Great.
So yes, even a complex Allemande by Bach, there are very, very simple solfeggio patterns in the melody that add. They have to go with the bass. You can't think of it in isolation. These are bass melody pairings, and that's kind of crucial to the style of the 18th century, as we're thankful to Bob for pointing out in his Galant style book and other publications.